Hey, what's up guys? Tao's back with another Project Diablo 2 video coming at you from Season 9 Anarchy. Cheers to any of you legends who recognize that footage from the last episode where I mentioned the Sacrifice Paladin build briefly and just how satisfying it is to play. I tried it out earlier in the season and since completing difficulty 1 Rathma and Declone on my charger, I've now started a second Paladin build just for mapping. That's right, 2 Paladins. I'm brand new to this class and it's been a blast, just like Fire Druid last season. Honestly, I never built a real smiter or hammered in back in Lord of Destruction days either. I was purely Sork for like 15 years of this game, but it's been a really fun introduction to get into Pally main. Anyway, so today I will be showing you more clips from this sacrifice build as well as gear and stats and other tips and tricks on the build. And before we kick off with additional highlights, if you are new to the channel and enjoy Project Diablo 2, please like and subscribe for more videos throughout this season. Yep, so jumping into the highlights, we'll start off with this T1 sewers map. 130% density, pretty easy roll, no life on it or anything, and I was able to complete this T1 in just over 5 minutes, so about 5 minutes, 10 seconds or so. Really kind of trying to push the pace with this, as that's the reason why I built this build, was essentially to try to find a faster mapper than the physical charger that I was running with, which is capable of decent times, but I just figured with the AoE explosion on here, which this is a nice highlight of, just to show what happens when kind of these explosions tend to chain a tiny bit. So when they do, it's really nice, and then sometimes nice drops happen as well. So we'll skip to the ID, to the slam. Yeah, GG. Okay. And then finishing up this map, you can see the map, the game clock is just over 5 minutes here. Started about 10 seconds into the game also to open the map. So, yep. We're showing off the clear now, so there's a pretty clean job of it, right? As you push for speed, sometimes it can be more, can be less, and we'll see some examples of me just trying to push DPS in a fat cow map right after this, or a little after this. And so here we're getting into some of the other satisfying clears as well. So now we're looking at this skull rune that drops and some more pop, pop, pop of the packs behind it. This is the boss pop in Torjin Jungle, the Great Worm over here. You're going to see what happens here with the explosion around him. Gone. One tapped. I've done this in a fortified version of this as well. Same exact result. And now for some cow carnage. So here we're looking at a 255 density rolled cow map. Here in Season 9, density rolls have changed as well, so that this is really akin to more like a 350% density cow map from previous seasons. And so you can see there's just tons and tons of fat packs through here, and they are absolutely getting crushed. So it is just so fun. So satisfying to just watch these guys get annihilated like this. So all the smoke she pops, and then boom, the whole screen hits flat. And then in another cow map, we also have this unique amulet ID. Scroll forward to where I eventually do ID it. Clean out some of the other junk in the stash. And we finally see it's a 30 Maris. 30 all res, only 5 attributes for what I'm talking about here.
Whatever.
Who gives a
Nobody
fuck
gives a
about
shit.
that? Perfect where it counts. No!
And so now I'm just showing what happens when you use sacrifice on a boss. That's what happens. That's what it looks like. We'll get into that in a little bit too. Instead, using charge on the boss is a safer way to kill it. Alright, so hopefully from those clips you can see that my first disclaimer makes sense, where I think this is not a hardcore build. Big disclaimer right up front right here. I'm at 24 deaths, I believe, for this character right now. 50 plus on my charger. Please try other stuff. You'll look at my gear probably and think, wow, this should be totally great for hardcore. No. Don't do it. If anyone has first-hand experience, please let me know in the comments down below. Honestly, if you were able to make it to 99 as a sacrifice paladin build, oh my goodness, props to you. You are an absolute legend. Alright, so first things first is going to be the weapon. This is the physical damage version of this build. I did see that Monarchon recently showed off a video of a fire elemental sacrifice version of this build, which looks absolutely sick. I think it's definitely a better budget option, and I recommended it to my friend who's playing Fire Charger to give that a shot as well, since the gear is so similar between the two. But anyway, I bought this Lyrics unboxed ethereal on day 3 or 4 for 2.75 high runes. Personally, now that I look back on it, I think it was actually an overpay at the time, but my puzzle box luck thankfully pulled through and I nailed 4 open sockets on it. It was a long time after that before I was actually able to source the Zod and the ohms for this, but I was thinking about it at like 2 a.m. theory crafting this build, and I was thinking that, yeah, I really, really want this item, and I saw a nearly perfect one. This is 394 enhanced damage prior to the box, so just 30% ED off of perfect, basically. So yeah, I'm not beating this one anytime soon, and we are using a lot of Joust, so that cooldown reduction is absolutely huge. The skills, life leech, of course, and then the damage to undead is really nice here as well, and there is a lot of it, which I'll go into more into a bit. But next I've got the Crown of Ages. So I've got this one for cheap. The rep life slam on this actually makes it really nice for mercenaries as well. So dual use there, we can kind of swap it back and forth as necessary. But inside, I've just got some flat damage, so you'll see 25 minimum and 20 maximum damage. The skill itself in Sacrifice does, you can see over 1800% enhanced damage on it by itself, as well as over 400 more from Fanaticism too. So your max damage jewels on here are going to be multiplied by 20 or maybe even 30 with all your buffs in. So this definitely goes a long way, but of course enhanced damage and maximum and flat damage are going to go farther, so room for improvement on this, but maybe if I get a slightly better slam on a Crown of Ages, I'll consider it. Amulet wise, I do want to go over this Blood Amulet, which was a really nice craft from my friend Nutscroll. He's hit the 10% increased block mod on it, and the life after kill is also really nice. So we are maxing Holy Sword because, of course, we are. This is two-handed Paladin sword build, so Holy Sword, just like Claw Block, is extremely OP. In fact, Holy Sword doesn't even have a block animation or delay. So you have 0 frame block that can block spells too, and it doesn't put you into any kind of recovery. So you get to attack right through it also. It just removes 50% of damage completely from the game, which is incredible. And so increased block mod on here, it works at 1/5 effectiveness, meaning this amulet alone gives me additional 2% parry, which is awesome because you're capped right around, or from the skill you're reaching around 50%, and adding on top of that is kind of tough. So in that same vein, I would love to get 10% block on these gloves over here too. I am keeping an eye out for those, but 1 to 2 high range sounds like a bit much at the moment, but it would be really great. These gloves, the Drax that I've got here, of course you're seeing a bit of IAS to help hit max frames, 11% life stolen per hit, big strength, and then the 10 life after each kill is really great as well, because there are those undead mobs that you're not able to leech off of and can be extremely deadly to you in this build. However, the big life after kill here is a major help with that. So stacking that's going to be really helpful, along with a total of 23 life leech at the moment. It's over 30 with the vamp gaze instead, if I choose to do that, and then 13 life per kill again really comes into play against those skeletons and ghosts. So it's not all undead mobs that you can't leech off of. It's actually ones that don't have like a body or look like they wouldn't have any blood, basically. So if you have zombies and ghoul lords and stuff, those can still be leeched. They may have a lower leech factor or something like that, but it's the skeletons, ghosts, wraiths, those kinds of things that have 0 leech factor that absolutely cannot give you any life leech back, but they will give you life after kill if you do kill them, or life per hit if you hit them, etc. So other ways to match your sustain with them, because the sacrifice build, the skill itself does do 3% damage to self. So this is maxed out. It starts off at, I think, 8%, and that's the way the skill works, where you are damaging yourself quite a bit and you are doing a lot of damage as well. So 3% of your damage, which can be, quite large numbers, coming back at you hurts a lot. So it'll be against undead, unleachable enemies as well as like map bosses or act bosses, they have very low life leech percentage, then that's going to chunk your body down, and that's what you saw in the clip. That's the many different ways I was able to kill myself. So because of that, one major thing that you're going to be looking at is PDR. So this armor, I did manage to craft this, and I was so sad I wasn't recording, but I was on voice and kind of chilling with friends on Discord. So, but still really happy to have made this GG armor over here. So unfortunately, obviously only a 10 FCR slam, but it did still piece for 2 open sockets, so amazingly useful. And yeah, so if you can't tell, PDR is extremely huge. It's a major premium on this build. Sacrifice does a lot of damage to yourself, like I was saying, and just look again at this big stick, right? So yes, you want to focus on PDR, and so that's between the Crown of Ages or Vamp Gaze if you wanted. This 28% armor over here, which is just insane to me, as well as the String of Years, then I'm at, by myself, just 58% damage reduction. There is a cap of 50%, so this is 8 over the cap over there. But because you can run into Decrepify or Amplify damage in maps, that will lower your damage reduction. And because of that, I'm actually even still using a Defiance Merc. So with the Defiance aura, I'm all the way at 68%. This helps mitigate the minus 50 or minus 20% of physical reduction from Amplify damage or from Decrepify, respectively. But to round out the rest of the gear, I've got a Wisp Projector here slammed with attack rating. I'm sharing this with my bosser. I've got a Ravenfrost slammed with life, a really nice life slam on this. My bosser is using the AR slammed one, so that one's separate between these two. And then I've also got these quad res boots, really just to kind of fix the res. And then from my charms, Paladin, Torch, and Annie, of course, yet to slam one. I've been selling mine instead, so haven't had a good slam to keep for myself just yet. But I'm using some Pally Combat charms, which I'm really not sure what's best in here, but knowing that it does add to the sacrifice and enhanced damage by a significant amount, so 25% per skill level, and then 25% of this is like an 800 average damage item weapon, then you're looking at like 200 damage per charm flat, right? So that's very competitive with whatever your max damage charm might be able to give you. So we've got that in addition to increasing our like Joust damage also. So with Joust, there's also a critical strike factor also. So that's one tip that I didn't notice previously, but your critical strike, it does not apply to sacrifice, right? So that's why I'm running 0 deadly and 0 crit, right? So I'm not using like Gladiator's Bane or High Lords or Nosferatu's Coil here, because Deadly Strike and Critical Strike, based on testing and from what folks in the Discord have said, do not apply. And that's exactly what I've seen as well. There's no difference if I max out my Deadly Strike versus just using the setup as I've shown it currently, right? So there's no difference there, and that being said, then I'm just not focusing on it. However, Joust itself does come with critical strike, and so maxing out the levels on this in addition to kind of the hard points for the cooldowns, I'm realizing that the soft points that can increase this as well do help too. So you're not at the 75% max cap of critical strike just yet, and so this can still improve. And so that again, that initial Joust into the pack is what should severely weaken your enemies, and then hopefully your sacrifice can come in right after that, kill it with a lot of overkill damage, and then generate that big pop that we're looking for. Alright, so a full look at the skills for this build, starting in the combat tree. Obviously we're maxing Sacrifice. It has the synergies of Redemption and Fanaticism, so we will be doing that as well. Also maxing Joust, so hard points to reduce the cooldown, and again our sword, which gives the additional 5.5 seconds reduction on the cooldown, lets us joust pretty much as often as we'll want from pack to pack. And then max Holy Sword. So here we're seeing a parry chance of 52% from the skill. 1 point charge is also really useful. This is what I primarily use for a single target, so anytime we're killing the boss, map boss or act boss, for example, that would be what we use. Because Sacrifice, again, just can't really leech back from them. They have a very low leech percentage, so you're going to chunk yourself down if you try to use Sacrifice on a boss. And then from offensive auras, it's just going to be maxing Fanaticism. defensive auras. I'm maxing redemption last, so there's quite a bit more damage still available from here. I think we're 7 points away, I guess, from maxing this one out. Stats wise, I do have a bunch of over by a bunch on strength and dexterity, but pretty much just whatever you need to equip, and then vitality. Attack rating, you want to get this a little bit higher. I did have AR slams on other gear in different setups that I was using, but with the Wisp, it's not so bad, especially with Fanaticism, which gives a lot of attack rating bonus. Also, you could use an Act 2 Blessed Aim Merc if you so wished, but the Deadly Strike bonus from the Blessed Aim Merc doesn't affect Sacrifice. It doesn't use Deadly Strike or Crit. It would help your Joust a tiny bit, but up to you to see if it's worth it or not. If you're not really hurting for AR, then I wouldn't do it. So I'm using the Defiance Merc again to help overcap my own damage reduction from 58 up to 68. But his DR is pretty good to do good as well, so you're going to have some tanky gear on him. But the main piece that I want to highlight is going to be your Innocence armor. So Innocence armor with Blade Shield is going to help proc way more amp damage as well. You don't have to wait for him to actually attack. And then as you are jousting and teleporting into these giant packs, it's going to be constant amp. Essentially, the second that you telestomp in, that amp's going to be on them. And if it's not on them for the Joust attack, then it'll be on them for your Sacrifice attack, which is really perfect. If you can imagine jousting in, doing a large chunk of an enemy's damage, and then you have amp damage proc on top of that, and for their last 10% of health, they have amp damage on them, and they're going to take the full might of your Sacrifice swing, then that's going to be max explosion at the end of that, right? So all things considered, if those things all fall into place perfectly, it is really good stuff. I did manage to slam 10 F faster run walk on these mermans, so super nice over here. He is using Mav's gloves just for the cannot be frozen as well. So yeah, that's pretty much the build. And finally, the last tip that I've got to talk about is actually with the self-killing part of the Sacrifice build. It does happen for sure. It's not the same as like my Charger build where I can literally, play with one hand. I'm sipping coffee and drinking, doing whatever I want with my other hand the whole time because I'm just right-clicking through an entire map, right? It's one-handed gameplay, which is really cool on its own, but Sacrifice is much more involved. One, you're jousting into packs. Two, you're trying to hit that same mobs that you just jousted into. You're trying to make sure you're avoiding the unleachable mobs and you're not spending too much time swinging on those. And then when you get to the boss, you got to make sure you're using your 1 point charge, which is crazy effective for what it's able to do with just one level into it per single target damage as well. So yeah, there's definitely a lot more to think about, but turns out when you do die, and this is when and not if, when you do die, if you are the one that's killing yourself using the Sacrifice damage, it's going to say that Taliesac slain by Taliesac, right? But there's actually no negative impact on your experience in that case. So since it's self-kill, for some reason, that does not lower your, does not have the same 10% EXP penalty. So that's not to say that it's a recommended way to go about playing the build, right? So like say this build is capable of reaching, so far for me anyway, like 5 to 6 minute sewers and Chaldeums, right? So if I'm doing these smaller maps at like 5 to 6 minutes, that's a really good pace. If I'm dying in each one, then we're looking at, a minute, 2 minutes of body recovery time as well. So then we're looking at 8 minutes maps, which is going to be way less efficient. So should we be taking advantage of this lack of EXP loss? I don't think so. It's definitely not something to farm in the min-max of this build, at least in my opinion anyway. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Anyway, I think that's where we'll wrap this one up. Hope you guys are still enjoying the season. Excited to see you all out there, and have a good one. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.